Like me, Lusotan believes healthy skin is the first step to a beautiful, natural tan. After 17 years working in the beauty and skincare industry, sisters Leah, Lindsay, and Sarah knew their mission when they started creating a skin health tanning brand. As new moms, they realised the importance of fewer chemicals, more nutrients and antioxidants like vitamin A and E, as well as comprising a ritual application process that took the stress, stickiness, and nasty smells out of our faux glow experience. They have even created the Bloom collection, especially for our blooming mamas. We salute you, ladies. If you want to find the perfect tanning product for you, head to luso.com and take a 5-minute quiz, or better still, request a Luso spray tan in your local beauty salon. Thank you so much to all the team at Luso for bringing you today's episode of Skin Deep by Karina Tolan. You are very welcome to today's episode of Skin Deep by Karina Tolan. Today I'm joined by James Bartholomeusz, who not only has probably the coolest name in the industry, but is CTO for Lutronics, which is a Korean laser manufacturing company, where we have the LaserMD is a Lutronic device. Monica Tolan, the skin expert, were the first clinic in Ireland to bring a Lutronics device in. We're very proud to align ourselves with this incredible brand that pumps so much money into research and development. They really are the creme de la creme of laser aesthetic devices. So it was such an honour to have their CTO, an absolute genius when it comes to engineering and manufacturing of these devices. James Bartholomeusz joined me for today's episode. Not only is he that, but he's also created a hair growth factor that we will be using with LaserMD in clinic. We were just waiting on European approval for that. So you will know by the time you've listened to this conversation why I, after one treatment, invested the price of a very nice car in this device. And like I said, we were the first in Ireland to do so. When you look at trends, like really the beauty and skincare industry is built around trends. You know, it's such a brave move for Monica Tolan's to step outside of a trend and to bring something in to the country that had never been seen before. And any of you who've ever had a laser or a LaserMD treatment will know why. And if you haven't, please make it your next treatment to jump on, because it is absolutely stunning with incredible results. I hope you enjoy my conversation. James, thank you so much for joining me here today. I'm so excited to have you on. I had the pleasure of meeting you in Greece last year, and you are an absolute genius at what you do. So tell people who are listening a bit about your background and how you found yourself in the medical aesthetic industry.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me on. Well, I'm kind of a lifer when it comes to this industry. I always tell people I was kind of born into it. My father's a plastic surgeon. My mother is a derm PA. My sister's an NP. I've been in an operating room probably since I was 8 years old, and I always wanted to be a plastic surgeon. And so when I was in high school, lasers started coming out, and since I was a little bit of a geek, I got involved with the lasers in my dad's practice, and just in high school, around 14, 15 years old, and started to play around with them, and ended up servicing them, and working on clinical protocols for them, and then I met this guy called Shimon Eckhouse, and for people who don't know, he's the guy who invented IPL, and he said, James, you can go and do medicine if you want, but why don't you just do some physics and work for me part-time, and you can always go back and do medicine later, and I've been doing it ever since. I never went back. So
fantastic. So like a plastic surgeon of the technical world, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's I'm a little bit different than most CTOs. I think people think of heads of R&D and CTOs as engineers, and typically they are engineers. They might be physicists, or they can be electrical engineers that have graduated to that position. I don't, right? I didn't do engineering, although I've been around engineers for 22 years. I didn't do engineering. But I have a very strong clinical background, obviously, family history, but also I just live and breathe. I live and breathe for the clinic and inside the clinic, in treating with devices and watching people and asking questions. And so I'm a little unusual in this space as a CTO because yes, I come up with the ideas for the products and I work with the engineers to bring them to life, but I can use them, right? I know how to use all of them, and I get most of the ideas for new products come from being with customers. And even like in Greece last year, meeting with you, you talk to everybody and you pick up on things, and hopefully we bring that back to the engineering table and we start working on some stuff. So I would like to say that that's what separates the Lutronic devices from others, is that we really care about the clinical application. We don't make devices for the sake of making devices. We have to, there has to be a very clear clinical goal, or something that we're trying to correct, or improve. Yeah, we don't engineer for engineering's sake.
Okay, excellent. So tell us about Nutronics, and what was it about this manufacturing company that drew you in? So for a little bit of background, Nutronics is a Korean laser device manufacturing company.
Yeah, so it's an interesting story. So I spent most of my career at Syneron Candela. That before I did some consulting work. And I have another company which is a cosmeceutical that we'll probably talk about later. But after I left Candela, I got introduced to Lutronic, and I knew about Lutronic, from a competitive aspect, that there was this, startup company in Korea that was manufacturing really good devices, and I kind of dismissed them at that point in time as, oh yeah, okay, the Koreans are coming for us, right? They're going to try and take over our industry, with my Candela hat on. And but then I met with the CEO, and this was right about when the Infinity, which was the predecessor to Genius, was coming out. And he pulled me aside. He said, "Look, James, we're not a copycat company. We're a really strong engineering company, and we want to do better. We always want to do better. And we heard you're the RF guy. Would you be able to help us with our next generation Infinity?" And I met with a bunch of other people at the company, and we plotted out, in the space of a couple of days, we plotted out what would become the Genius product. And so then they disappeared and went off making that, and called me back in like 2018 and said, "Hey, we made that product that you spec'd out for us. Now we need you to finish it." So. And then I actually got to travel to Korea. And what's unique about Lutronic is actually Lutronic's probably the last, unfortunately, of the fully what we call vertically integrated companies. That means, everything right now, we're expanding, but everything we do is in one building. So we have our sub basements of production, right? We manufacture everything. We don't buy, other than a couple of laser modules that we buy from IPG, which is a big laser company. We manufacture everything ourselves. If you talk about Genius, which we'll talk about, we manufacture the needles, right? We don't just buy them off the shelf, and that's incredibly rare. If actually we could be the only company left that's like that. Candela doesn't manufacture now. Cynosure don't do that. So a lot of the original companies that were like, we manufacture everything ourselves, have now gone to contract manufacturing. And that doesn't mean contract manufacturing is bad, but I got to tell you, when you've got 100 engineers and you're trying to create something that nobody else has created before, it helps to be able to make it all in-house. Because this business isn't off the shelf. You can be off the shelf, but if you're off the shelf, you'll be no better than the next person. So if you want to have a product that is distinguished, and you want to have a clinical result that is consistent or significantly better than what exists, some of those things you just have to engineer yourself, and that's what drew me to Lutronic. Having that stack, and in-house pathology lab. We're probably one of the only companies that run an in-house pathology lab on our third floor. So I mean, very engineering focused, very clinically focused company, and engineering for spare no expense engineering, and I love that.
Yeah, for sure. So, and you don't make devices for anyone else but Lutronics.
No, no. What we do, we manufacture, we build. Everything is just for Lutronic.
Okay, great. So there's a massive influx of RF microneedling on the market, and many of these devices, in my opinion, are promising more than they can deliver. Explain why many fall short and what is so genius about Lutronics' genius.
Well, I'm very, very opinionated about this subject, and I have reason to be. I've been working with, I developed the first fractional RF product with Cineron back in 2007, and that was kind of my baby. Kind of my first product that I was able to do by myself at that point in time. And so, it was very, the logical progression was to use needles, but I don't think that anybody realizes why. It's very, in the first patents that you will find on needle-based RF technology, they're going to say something along the lines of to do something that a laser cannot. Now, needling itself comes from two different worlds. And you know this better than most. Micro needling is kind of the bottom up has come from the beautician and into the medical space. No RF at all, right? Just needling by just mechanical damage with needles, with skincare and things like that, with Environ and Des Fernandez, they were when they invented it, right? The collagen induction
Yeah.
therapy. So there's a lot of there's that you can look at it from that side and go, oh well, it's collagen induction, and now we're just adding some heat, and that's what needle RF is all about. That is actually not what needle RF is about. That's not the true nature of needle RF. That would be a very simplistic view of needle RF. So if we go back to what the origination of it is the whole goal is to be able to put more energy into the skin, bypassing the surface layer of the skin. And that's my line, is to do something that a laser cannot. If I have a needle that is just a hot poker, I don't need a needle for that. I could use a laser. So having a needle that's just a hot needle that creates a mechanical channel and then a thermal damage around that channel, I can do that with a laser. Why do I need a needle? That's ridiculous. The reason to use the needle, and purely an insulated needle, right, is to be able to distribute the energy at a certain depth and at a certain width, right? That is more than what you can do with a laser. So a laser always energy diminishes as it goes into the tissue. Whereas if you know what you're doing with RF, you can control the damage zone inside the tissue without sacrificing the surface of the skin. And that's the true nature of needle RF. And unfortunately, nearly every single product that exists in this market today does not do that. There are only two devices out of nearly hundreds probably now, but in the US we have about 30 or so different devices. Only two operate under that principle of controlling the distribution of energy inside the skin and not being a hot needle. Which is crazy to think about, right? That out of all of the needle RF devices that I have, and the big hype around needle RF, every single one of those are just hot needles, right? And doing nothing more than what you could do with a laser. A non-ablative fractional laser, you're much better using one of those than you are using one of these hot needle devices, right? Why are you shoving needles in somebody's face when you don't have to? So the key is to establish where lasers are best, what's lasers best at, and then what if we want more, how do we get more? And the whole concept of using needles with RF at the tip of the needle was to go beyond what you could do with a laser and be able to affect the tissue more on the inside without damaging the outside. And it's kind of upsetting for me to see that, there's been this whole market that's created around hot needles, and nobody's really operating under the correct principles of why we use needles in the first place.
Yeah, because the results just aren't there. You know, like what I'm seeing across the board, the results don't warrant the trauma incurred.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, if you've just got, a bunch of 40 hot needles that are poking into the skin, not only is that density very, very low, right? So how do you get results, right? So results come from a couple of different things. Now, the first assumption that you make to get a result is, okay, what is my damage density, right? When we're talking about a fractional treatment, which is needles are a fractional treatment, this is a fractional treatment, whether it's a fractional laser or it's fractionated hot needles, it's a fractionated treatment. That means that the results will be proportional to the percentage of damage that you make. You damage 10% of the skin, you'll get at least a 10% improvement. You damage 20%, you're going to get about a 20% improvement minimum, right? That's a good measure. So all the results are predicated on one, did you create an injury, right? If you did create an injury, what percentage? Now, if you look at needle RF devices, most of them have 25 or 40 microneedles. And if the injury width is the thickness of the needle, you're looking at about a 0.5% density of treatment per pass. So even if you've got, the latest and greatest Morpheus 8, whatever, that's the 40 hot needles with a return plate that's on the skin surface, the best case is you're treating a couple of percent of the skin. And that's assuming that the energy is being delivered correctly every single time. Like there's no feedback mechanism in any of the other devices to for you to know how much energy you delivered, and that's another problem that we have with RF. So the best case scenario is you're doing something that you could do with a non-ablative fractional laser. I mean, if you're treating 5%, 10% of the skin, I mean, this whole idea about being 8 millimeters, and that's a pipe dream. That's a joke. Nobody needs to be 8 millimeters into the face. You're into the muscle by that stage. So if there is a result, which of course there's people that have said, oh, I saw some results in the beginning of my Morpheus 8 or my Potenza or my whatever name any needle RF device. They're just seeing non-ablative resurfacing. That's all they're seeing. You see that nice little crusting, the little dots on your face, and it peels off, and you go, oh, it's smooth. But there's no tightening,
And maybe
lifting, volumizing. Yeah, I mean, I could take the Laser MD or the Ultra. I'll go head to head with any needle RF device except our own. When it comes to being able to reproduce a result, I mean, you could treat half a face with a fractional laser, half with these needle RF devices. I promise you, the non-ablative fractional will provide a better result. It'll be more comfortable and more consistent.
And James, that's literally why I haven't brought RF microneedling into my clinic, because I have never had a genius treatment, and it is my intention to have one. But any of the ones I have had, my result with the Laser MD far exceeds the results I ever got with them.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to see the lack of histological evidence that these companies, they're all about it's all about marketing. It's all about this. There's no good histology that shows that what they're doing is any different than what's being done with the fractional laser. Now, us having genius and being based on the very fundamentals of what needle RF is about, we have the opposite problem. The opposite problem that we have is, because genius is working under the skin and you don't see the injury and there's no dots on the skin surface, there's no resurfacing, you got to wait to see the results, right? You got to wait for the collagen and the elastin to grow. And people that would have a genius treatment, they'll go, oh, I don't see anything, right? I don't have any crusting. I don't have any mends or anything like that. That's by design. That means that you've been surface protected. So the fact that we have a device that creates these large volumes of damage inside the tissue and does zero damage to the surface is actually a disadvantage for genius. And it's the reason why nearly everybody that wants to do genius will also probably do a Laser MD or do an Ultra treatment, because you need to have both of those. Epidermal resurfacing is one of the most important aspects of any aesthetic result. But it doesn't matter, this whole idea about, well, I don't know where this came from about going deep and getting, tightening, you need to be deep and stuff like that's just nonsense. It's just complete nonsense. I mean, let's go back to resurfacing lasers. I mean, when CO2 laser was invented, right, fully ablative resurfacing, lasers were invented. A deep treatment with a CO2 is a couple hundred microns, 0.1 to 0.2 of a millimeter. And nobody would say, hey, the CO2 doesn't tighten skin very well, right? It's like, well, first of all, it doesn't tighten skin. It vaporizes and it cooks skin. And when your skin rebuilds itself, it is more elastic and it's got better integrity to it, and it makes the appearance of tighter skin. Nobody wants actually tight skin. They want the appearance of tight skin. That's 0.2 of a millimeter. Your LaserMD. When you're not doing a full resurfacing treatment, but you're treating 5, 10, maybe 15%, and you're treating at a couple hundred microns into the skin, you will see beautiful results on texture of fine lines, wrinkles, even mild scarring. You can see all of that with a fractional laser. This idea that we have to be, couple of millimeters into the skin is just nonsense.
Yeah. Do you actually get a bleed with RF microneedling? A subcutaneous bleed? Or does the heat coagulate it?
Yes and no. So RF, if you're sub-Q, if you're sub-Q, more than likely, there's no damage happening around the needles because there's no conductivity. So for example, if those needles did happen to hit the fat layer, when the RF turns on, there's just no conductivity. So the distribution of energy is almost zero. That's one of the hardest things about it. People always talk about fat loss and all of this other stuff. I think that's greatly overstated. But there's obviously can be a mechanical trauma to the fat cells. But again, when we go back, we talk about probabilities here. It's the density, right? Is 1%, 2%? Is that really even if you you get these little bleeds that sometimes you'll see like little pinpoint bleeding spots. I mean, that's completely normal given the channel that you've created. And yes, if it's in the skin, you will coagulate some of that. But if you're not coagulating the entire length of the needle, then you're going to have some blood spots, which will be normal. If you don't see blood, now let me put it another way. If you don't see blood spots, the needles are not penetrating into the skin. And that's another thing that is a very misunderstood characteristic is it's pretty hard to shove 49 or 40 needles into somebody's face and get them all to go to the same depth. It's really, really difficult. Just try using your hand and push one needle into the skin and see how rigid your skin is to try and get it in there. So more than likely, most of the devices are using needles within the first millimeter of the skin, and they're not going that much deeper than that.
So tell us what makes Lutronic's Genius different, to all these other devices that gets us that result.
Yeah. So again, to go back, we really focused on those fundamental principles, right? Which is to do something a laser cannot. And that's kind of the mantra, right? And so to do something the laser cannot means that, okay, I've got a needle that's a couple hundred microns in thickness. The needle, I don't want to be part of the treatment. I don't want the needle to be part of the treatment. The needle is a delivery system. All it is a delivery system for radio frequency. It is not supposed to be part of the treatment. So that's one of the first things about Genius. So how do you minimize the impact of the needle? Well, you make them really sharp. You make them very, very thin. You make them with a constant bevel. Hence, we actually have to make our own needles to be able to get them to the depth that we want to get them to. Because if it's just going a millimeter, again, why am I using needles? I want to be at 1.5, 1.8, 2.0. In some scarring situations where you have thick scars in male patients, you might need to be about 2.5 millimeters thick. So we had to be able to reproduce to get 49 needles to those depths. And then just the end of the needle, the last little bit of the needle, that's where the electrical current is going to come out of. And making sure that electrical current just comes out in a ball around each of those needles consistently, that's a very difficult thing to do, because now you have to worry about local resistance in the area, and there's a lot of complicated measurements that need to be done. So one of the things that Genius does is, so if we were summarizing them, the force feedback motor, it means a very, very strong motor that knows where the needles are, sharp, super sharp needles. And the system makes adjustments, it makes measurements 1,000 times a second. So it will during a single pulse, it will make a judgment call on how to know for sure that it's delivering energy through those needles in order to create a volume of damage that is significantly larger than the needle. So if I put 49 needles into your skin, the 49 needles might only be a 0.5% density, right? Just the needles by themselves. But I'm looking to get 5 or more percent, so 10 times more volume of damage than the quantity of the needles. That's what true needle RF should be about, which is making damage that's much, much more than the needles, and have needles kind of get out of the way of the treatment.
Okay, very good. So you often, and many practitioners, combine the RF and the Genius with LaserMD. So talk to me about LaserMD, which of course is my baby. We have one in clinic. And what do you think makes it so incredibly special? Because I am blown away every day by the amazing results that we achieve with a treatment that takes maybe, well, in theory, the laser takes about 9 minutes to do, minimum downtime, complete comfort for the patient, and an incredible outcome.
Yeah, I think so. There's a couple things there is, and it's also my favorite laser too. So, it's I think first of all the wavelength, this 1927 nanometer wavelength, it just hits a sweet spot. You know, we talked about full resurfacing before, and the fact that people have completely gone into la la land with a depth that you need to treat somebody in order to make their skin look better. I mean, step number one in making somebody's skin look better: improve their reflectivity of their skin, right? And the reflectivity of the skin is the first 180 to 100 microns. That's the epidermis, right? You resurface the epidermis, you're well on your way to making the skin look better. Now, obviously, you can't just do the resurfacing of the epidermis. You've got to do a little bit more, and that's where the 1927 wavelength is beautiful, because it can do the epidermal resurfacing, and then it can create a volume of damage in the upper layer, or the papillary layer of your dermis, about 0.2, 0.3 millimeters. And that's going to increase the thickness of that layer, that papillodermal layer. You're going to get a brand new layer. So you can kind of tune that in, and that's what's special about that wavelength is it can do that damage without creating a hole. It does the damage by coagulating or by thermally damaging a zone. It does it consistently. It doesn't. I mean, there's no worrying about impedance or anything like that, or the system is tracking the dots, so it speeds up the laser, slows it down as per you. So the consistency of the injuries that are created are substantially higher than most other devices, especially when you talk about some of these needle RF devices. And so you're getting, so in some cases you can push it, you can get 15 to 20% resurfacing. You do that a couple of times, you're really going to change somebody's, not only their reflectivity of the skin, but once that collagen starts to build, then you'll improve the texture as well, and the wrinkling. And so, again, I don't know why. I'm happy that there aren't a bunch of companies trying to copy what we're doing there, but for once. But I don't know why. I think what probably keeps people away, and this is a very pessimistic way to look at our industry, but I think what keeps it away is the cost. I think what keeps people away, the reason why, these companies that have Morpheus and all these other needle RF devices, RF is for them cheap. And if they're using needles and RF to do something that we can be doing with LaserMD, They're kind of like a poor, to me, that's like poor man's Lays MD. You should do it correctly because you don't need the needles for that. So I think that's what people are really, you know, they don't quite get right now. It's like, that's why, you love your Lays MD, you know what it can do. I mean, if a lot more people knew what they could get from their 1927, as I said, I don't think needle RF devices would be that popular in the way that they're designed today.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reality is you don't need to aggressively shout at the skin the whole time. I'm a great believer in consistent whispers, and LazyMD does that. It gently encourages the skin to rehabilitation, to regeneration, and you've such incredible control with whatever level you choose to do. But like you said, it's that consistent um power or energy that it gives off. But then, of course, with LazyMD, which I think is very unique, is we've that two or duo modality where we have the subcutaneous ablation, so we trigger that wound healing response, but then we also have the transdermal delivery. And I'm only ever really doing one of two things in clinic. I'm either incurring a wound healing response or I'm trying to feed the skin. Whereas LazyMD combines, and we have that process where we do both. We get the wound healing response, but then we also can feed the skin a cosmeceutical to take the whole treatment in whatever direction it is that we want, be it pigmentation or be it skin health or be it resurfacing or regeneration of collagen or maybe even hair stimulant.
Yeah, I mean, that's what actually brought me back to Lutronic was they were actually doing a lot of work on the scalp, and one of the things that, again, just to dispel some myths and things like that, making a ablative hole with a CO2 or an erbium, or shoving a needle into somebody's face and thinking that you're going to get product to go down that hole is the biggest joke ever, because there's a very small period of time. It's a few seconds once you create an open wound where you have that pressure effect that can actually pull in some of the particles. It has to be done right then and there at that time. The reason why the 1927, the LazyMD, is such a great device, as you called it, you got the double way you can do the remodeling, but you can also use it as a delivery, is it's not a hole. It's a destabilized area of the epidermis, which is like a sponge. And there's a 5 to 7 times increase in those, whatever you put on, that will go into those channels. And so actually the LazyMD or the 1927 wavelength is the best wavelength for transdermal delivery of product, period. And when you look at something like the scalp, which is something that we'll be launching in Europe very, very soon, Carolase, when you look at the scalp, it's even more important that you don't do stuff that's aggressive. People, I don't know, again, I don't know why, but I mean, maybe because your hair covers it, but your scalp is thinner than the skin on your face, right? And if you've got somebody that's got losing their hair, guess what? They have poor circulation. Poor circulation creating wounds, they don't go together. So so when you look at, I've got the perfect dermal delivery device for the face. Well, what if we wanted to deliver growth factors or other things to try and stimulate the scalp and stimulate healthy hair formation? You need that gentle approach even more then, right? And that's where, again, being able to use a wavelength like 1927, not going to burn the hair, not going to create damage in the dermis, which you don't want to do in the scalp, and you're getting that 5 to 7 times absorption. So all of the things we love about the LazyMD on the face and the neck when we do topical or even hands, topical infiltration, they all apply when it comes to like something like Carolase on the scalp.
So let's just take a little deep dive into Carolase, if we will, James. So you basically, was it that you had started to notice hair loss pattern yourself that you decided to invent this serum, really? So talk to us about that, how that came about.
Well, I mean, that's 10 years now. So I started working on Carafactor, which is the growth factors that make the Carolase procedure work. So I started working on those in 2013, and yes, it was all for vanity. It was my own hair. It was receding very, very badly, and I did the typical thing. I have like dermatologists on speed dial, right? I'm very fortunate to be in this industry, have all the world experts, and I think I asked, I don't know, 50 different people what I should do. They were like, okay, minoxidil, right? Or you should also take finasteride, or and that was it. That was the best that they could come up with, and I was like, okay, I think we can do better than that, and so I kind of went on this deep dive into what are what makes the most influence on how healthy your hair grows. And so we came up with a bunch of growth factors. I started with like 15, then we got down to 10, and then we were able to synthesize 7. The current formula has 8 growth factors in it. Each one of them specifically chosen for their ability to affect a different part of the hair at a different stage, right? So in the anagen stage, when your hair is growing, your body is looking for certain things in order to produce a hair, and how much keratin is secreted directly proportional to the thickness of the hair and things like that. So it's a very specific formula. I think even people now, when they look at it, they're like, oh, wow, it's very, very unique formulation because, most people are just putting using PRP or using stem cell factors or exosomes now, which you have no idea what they are. It's a very non-specific way to treat a problem that is actually very specific. So the thing that makes Carefactor unique is that we only use the growth factors. We don't use anything else. Each one of them is specifically picked for a specific reason. If it doesn't have a reason, it's not in the formula. And then we use the Laser MD, we use the Ultra to get that higher concentration into the scalp. So that gives you like a little bit of a boost, because the product itself was designed to. I didn't have the laser in mind when I started working on the product. It was just I wanted to have a topical formulation that anybody could buy and use. So we had to make it so that it would actually go down the hair ducts. So the particle size is a nanoliposome. Each one of those growth factors are encased in their own nanoliposome, and that enables it to be able to penetrate the hair duct itself. But that's when Lutronic came along and they said, "Hey, we heard you've got this, miracle grow hair growth factors. You want to use them with our laser MD?" And I said, show me the data that you have, and they rolled out showed the 5 to 7 times increase, and I went, yeah, that could really make a huge impact, because the number one thing that people get disappointed about is hair takes time to grow, right? And the faster they can start to see the improvement, the better they are at doing their home care, massaging their scalp, and doing all the things that are really important. So having the laser and having Keralase really just kind of supercharges that, and it's been a great partnership. We've been doing it since 2019, and we just got our CE clearance and UK clearance, so we'll be rolling that out in the next couple months.
Yeah, we are so excited. I've been sharing some of the results that you have on your page on Instagram, and the results are phenomenal. What I love about it is the hair growth is, so reflecting as to the health of the skin on the scalp, and then so the Lays looks after that, take care of the health of the skin, as does of course the serum, and then you get this incredible result. And like you said, it is the long game. So how many treatments are you thinking? Like, is it like every 2 weeks? Is it once a month? Is it every week? And about how many? I'm thinking 12 more.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good question. We actually did a study that was published in the International Society of Hair Restoration. So where we actually did treatments a week, treatments every 2 weeks, and treatments every month. And so that was 12 treatments over 12 weeks, 6 treatments over 12 weeks, and 3 treatments over 12 weeks. And well, I would like to say to our surprise, it wasn't a surprise to me, but to some people it was. There was no difference. So we know that the number of treatments is not the critical factor. The critical factor is the time. So actually spacing the treatments further apart, meaning that you're giving more time to start to see the results, has been better. So we've been recommending treatments every 4 to 6 weeks, between 3 and 6 treatments. Really try and space them out over the course of the year. Think about it like the opposite of laser hair removal, right? Laser hair removal, you want to try and treat at different intervals to try and get the hairs in the anagen phase. Well, reverse that for the hair growth, and you want to take the similar type of approach. So our minimum recommendation is a minimum of 3 treatments a month apart, preferably 6 weeks apart, and 6 is the max for the first go round. And then obviously there's take home products, shampoo and solution that they can use at home. And what I tell everybody is, anybody who is suffering from hair loss or having problems with their hair, here's a free top tip that doesn't cost you a cent. Massage your scalp, and wash your hair. I mean, so hot water in the shower, make your scalp nice and pink. That's the free way of keeping your scalp healthy, right? And one of our lines is, scalp is skin too, don't forget, right? And that's why our tagline for Care Factor is skincare for hair, because people do not take care of their scalps anywhere close to how they take care of their face. Just paying attention to what you're doing to your scalp, what you're putting on your scalp, avoiding the dry shampoos, and really treating your scalp as a first-class citizen as much as you would treat your skin, it will put you in a much better spot. And nothing has shown us more than that through going through this COVID, and having stress-induced hair loss, telogen effluvium. And there's just been an influx of people that are just like, my hair's falling out, it's getting brittle, it's all of this. So there's been a lot of focus on scalp health lately, which is nice, scalp and skin health. So that's also been helpful. But it sounds really simple, right? It's like, just wash your scalp, get the crud off your scalp, let your scalp breathe, and you'll see your hair improve. And if you need more, then Care Factor and Keralase is there to give you the boost.
Yeah, fantastic. What people may not realize is blood is literally the life. It's the oxygen for hair. And every time you rub yourself, you're bringing blood to the area.
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember a client a long time ago, and she gave up smoking. And as a result, she kind of developed this habit of rubbing her chin. It was like a distraction, but she started to grow excess hair, and it was purely from her stimulating the area consistently.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
James, that's so exciting. You told me about this last year when we were in Greece, and I've been drip feeding it to my clients, and they're very, very excited to have Care Factor on board as well. We really are looking forward to it, hopefully very soon. So tell me, what do you see next for Lutronics? Is there anything exciting you right now? Any new technology? Do you want to give me an exclusive?
There was a saying about Steve Jobs at Apple, where they said, "Isn't it funny, a ship that leaks from the top," which which a lot of people don't get it, but usually the people who know all the secrets over the next 5 years are the ones that are leaking them. So, I mean, what I will tell you, we won't discuss any future products, but what I will tell you is that we are intensely focused on this idea about non-ablative resurfacing. I think there's a lot more that can be done. What's been sad is that Fraxel was developed 2005. Nothing has changed. Nothing's got better. Nothing is really. I mean, yes, the LaserMD is a better alternative to Fraxel, correct, but the fundamental principle of fractionated resurfacing has not changed since that period of time. And that's what's allowed all of these, cheapy, really poorly made hot needle devices to become popularized, which which, as we talked about before, is kind of crazy that you shoving hot needles into your face is considered something that's good. And I think that's a fault of us not doing a good enough job. I think there wouldn't be the need for these devices to exist if we could do a better job. So I'm intensely focused on cracking the code and trying to work out a way to do a better job in the non-ablative resurfacing realm. And I think that and also pursuing the body with an intense focus is whether it be with Genius and taking a look at cellulite again, which is like the perennial, like when is somebody actually going to work this out? So those are things that I'm pretty our whole team is intensely focused on. I mean, we got 20 projects we're working on over the next 5 years, so we're very busy boys and girls over there in Seoul.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I know for me, I'm 27 years in this industry, James, and I've never jumped on trends. I was the first person in Ireland to bring in a Lutronics device, and I am very proud to align myself with the brand. While others are spending money on marketing and doing free treatments for influencers, Lutronics are spending their money on research and development, and that's exactly where I want to be, and I know that's where you are as well. Jim, thank you so much for your time here today. Like I said, I look forward to working with you more closely in the future as we work with your product, Care Factor.
Yeah, I can't wait to come out and see you, and I'll bring some Care Factor MD with me.
Yes, please do. Thank you so much for your time today. I know you're a very busy man. I really do appreciate it, and hopefully we'll have you on again very soon.
No, I would love to. Thank you so much for having me.
You enjoyed that chat with James as much as I did, and I can't wait to have Care Factor in clinic. Hopefully in the new year we will have that. I've already been running trials myself using the Laser MD to stimulate hair growth without a serum, or with a serum that's not Care Factor, and we're getting phenomenal results. So you can just imagine how excited I am for this product to land in the new year. So you can see the reason why I brought Laser MD into Monica Tolan, the skin experts, but also why I felt such an urgency to bring this podcast for you all to hear, because there's so many devices out there, and a lot of them have awful side effects for the skin, where people are being left with permanent scarring, etc. So I would ask you not to just jump on the latest trend, to really do your research, and to be patient as well, even when having a Laser MD, to look to work with lower modalities, and then once your skin responds well, to increase that level. If you enjoyed today's episode of Skin Deep, please do share it amongst your friends and family, because that is how our community grows. And thanks as ever to our sponsors, Lucid Tan, for bringing you today's episode. Talk to you all soon.